So, 2 weeks ago, we talked about F1, and that's more physics. And I don't take physics A level, and I think probably for good reason because my explanations weren't very good. So, today, guess what? We're going back to our roots. We're talking about biology. Yeah. So, if you're sick and tired of it, you're free to leave. If you're here for it, you're free to stay, whatever you want. But, anyways, this week we're talking about my favorite. That's right, my favorite extinct animals. So, yeah, stick around if you want. So, today I'm going to be talking about three of my favorites. And embarrassingly, and I hate to admit this, none of them are plants. I really hate that. I like to be diverse in my favorites of, species, and I must say, like a small fraction of which are plants. Which, one of which is the Bohemia. It's really pretty. And it's like a hybrid between two different trees. It's really cool. The flowers are nice. And that is about as much as I can tell you about my favorite plant species. Um, which is really embarrassing, and I need to widen my horizons. I do. But anyways, as I said, none of them are plants. Two of which are birds, and one of which is a marsupial, actually. So yeah, you know what? Let's get into the birds. First, and it's kind of generic, I have to say. The dodo. So these small, stodgy guys, they were genuinely stodgy, um, were like endemic to Mauritius. So endemic is practically saying this species only lives in this part of the world. So for example, there's kangaroos. They're endemic to Australia, Oceania. You've got, I think there's like two species of butterflies out of all the species in the UK. Wait, yeah, yeah, sorry. And they're endemic to the UK only. They only exist in that part of the world. And that's kind of cool. That's really cool and sick. And I like that. Um, and Mauritius is like a island next to Madagascar, if I'm not wrong. Let me check. Mauritius. Pull up the maps. Exactly. Right next to Mauritius. Right next to Mauritius. And so you might be thinking, how the hell did a bird come to be like that? We don't know any other birds that look like that. And you're right. You're right. So what scientists propose is that a certain species of pigeon kind of just flew over the area and decided to land there. And because that area did not have any predators, did not have any threats or whatever, they just kind of stayed there. And over time, they kind of evolved to have, those features short, stodgy, flightless, long, thick beak. Those features. Because there were no predators and because they also adapted to certain types of foods there. And so, yeah, that's how the dodo came to be. And in 1600s, the Dutch, um, because, they were colonizing and everything back then, they went on a little excursion and found Mauritius. And then they found these little birds and they went like, "Oh, these birds are so even-tempered. They aren't scared of anything because they evolved to, not be afraid because they didn't have predators on that little island." And so they went like, nice source of protein, and They just went, you know, they killed a lot of them. And yeah, so that contributed to the extinction. Sorry if this is like a really dark podcast episode, but I mean, it's nice to, own up to mistakes, that type of stuff. Just saying, sorry about that. Really sorry. If you don't want to hear about extinction, you're free to go, honestly. Free will. Whatever. Um, where was I? Yeah. Uh, mass extermination was one of the reasons why they went extinct. But there were other reasons as well. For example, the Dutch introduced dogs, cats, rats, and like a lot of other invasive species that really, really harmed the population. These invasive species weren't checked. They weren't regulated or whatever. Because I mean, back then they were kind of just willy nilly and went like, that's happening to the environment, whatever. We're sure it can regenerate itself. That was their mindset back then. It was very laissez-faire, throwing that history year 9 term. Just kidding. And so yeah, that population just really went crashing down. And I think the last recorded sighting was like in 1662, and then by the 1700s they were extinct. Why? Because invasive species kind of just desecrated the environment to reduce their habitat as well as ate their eggs. And so, yeah, and then humans, colonizers, shot a lot of them, ate a lot of them, and just kind of exploited, their calm temperament. And so, yeah, the poor birds, and I mean, till this day, they kind of stand as like a testament for anthropogenic caused, human caused extinctions. And I mean, one of the reasons why scientists want to bring them back is it's the right thing to do because we caused so much harm to them. It's the moral thing to do. It's the ethical thing to do. That's one of the reasons why. Another reason why, technological advancement, and I mean, kind of like for people to be awed, I guess. I mean, you don't you don't see a large flightless bird walking around often. So, I mean, you kind of do if you work with penguins. But I mean, this flightless bird next to Madagascar, tropical regions, endemic to Mauritius. Very, very all causing. I don't know what the word is. But yeah. That's some of the reasons why. And now on to bird number 2. And honestly, this really hits a place in my heart because it's really sad. Yeah. Now, so the bird is from Hawaii, like the Hawaii Islands. Kauaʻi ʻōʻō. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And I mean, yeah. Really sad, obviously. Extinction is sad. But there's an even sadder part of it, if that makes sense. And I'll get to that part in a bit. So, Hawaii is made up of like so many islands. And I mean, you can tell from the name it's native to the Kauaʻi island, endemic to that part, island. And it was a honeysuckle species, and so, nectar feeding, so it had a elongated curved beak. And I mean, I'd say honestly, it it isn't like the most eye-catching. It isn't the most eye-catching. It's more black in color, with a few specks of small little muted colors. And you know what? I don't care. You're catching my attention otherwise. Anyways, and there's a lot of species that are endemic to Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands, specifically birds. And, the island effect, it's kind of like what happened for the dodo, except over a range of different islands. And I'm going to add in the Darwin's finches in here. So I think I said something about this before, but I'm not sure. So, Darwin's finches, went over the Galapagos Islands and and they got scattered across the islands. And islands are like, they're kind of like small communities, small gated communities, which you kind of can get out of, but you kind of can't. I'm not saying anything bad about gated communities, Anyways, so on these different types of islands in the Galapagos, I'm not talking about the Hawaiian ones, I'm talking about the Galapagos ones. They're like different types of food. So on one island you get cactus fruits, on the other you get like really hard nuts. And in all of these communities there are random instances of mutations in their genes that cause different features. So there's mutations in their genes that cause mutations in their phenotypes, the impression of the genes as like a physical feature. So, for example, I've got some hold on. Let me try and draw in my biology knowledge. One type of phenotype can be like a different eye color, different iris color, And so, yeah. And yeah. And then some of these genotypes of the finches were advantageous for the types of food they were eating, so they were more likely to survive, more likely to reproduce and pass on their genes. And so over time that created a new species. And this is also called natural selection. Yay! And over time, that causes evolution as well. So, yeah. And that probably happened on the Hawaiian Islands as well. And that's why there's so many like distinctive species that are endemic to their little islands. And yeah. But like you might be wondering, what caused the extinction? Invasive species again. Invasive species. Almost every single time it's invasive species. I feel like I'm going crazy. Now, there were, now, believe it or not, Hawaii originally did not have mosquitoes. And you might be thinking, tropical place definitely has mosquitoes. Not Hawaii until 1826 when a whaling vessel wanted to refill its freshwater casks, and it ended up dumping mosquito-infested water into a river on Maui. And that's just kind of that mosquito population kind of just spread across through Hawaii. And you might be thinking, oh, mosquitoes, that'll just affect the human population. No, sorry. It did actually drastically affect the bird population there. So the mosquitoes were night biting, and they fed on the blood of the birds, biting around the eyes, legs, and feet. Um, and I mean, the bite obviously does little harm. It's, a bit of swelling up, itchy, you're done. But it could also infect the birds with parasites, and I will try my best to say this. Plasmodium re- relictum um, capistranoe, and it invades the liver and spleen, and also penetrates the red blood cells. And when it it multiplies in the red blood cells, causing the red blood cells to lyse, rupture, and it causes an anemic condition called avian malaria. So, if you were a bird being bitten by these mosquitoes, you were toast. So, yeah, it just really, really, it was fatal to the bird population in Hawaii. And I mean, yeah, not only were there mosquitoes that were invasive, there were also um, pigs, cats, dogs, rats, and well, not well, are there were no, yeah, there were dogs, um, and I mean the pigs, um, they dug up the forest floor, introduced weeds, were allowed to grow, and it reduced like the invasive habitat. Oh wait, what? It reduced the native habitat. And so, less habitat for the birds. Less habitat for the birds. Not only that, the constant digging by the pigs really disrupted the forest floor, allowing invasive weeds to grow, reducing native habitat for trees and vegetation that was important for the birds. And so, less habitat, less food. Yeah, their food source, like the flowers, the plants that produced flowers that produced nectar that they eat, just kind of got outcompeted by invasive species. And so, um, along with their food source, their population of the birds plummeted. And then, the constant, disruption of the forest floor also created erosion, like increased erosion, and created breeding grounds for more mosquitoes. And so, yeah, feral cats, obviously. I mean, this has been happening across the world, specifically Oceania. Oceania, where feral cats have been, I mean, I'd say the sole cause of some bird extinctions. Yeah. I mean, it's still happening today in New Zealand. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, New Zealand. And some parts of Australia, I think. And then the rat, the rat. So the rat honestly could climb. Rats are agile. Climbed, ate the eggs out of the nest. Ate the eggs out of the nest. And they were just munching on it. And all of these causes just kind of cause the death and then extinction of the Kauaʻi ʻōʻō. And yeah, really sad. Really, really sad. And I think they got categorized as extinct in 2000, but I'm not sure. Do not take my word for it. Now, I have not gotten to the saddest point, and this is the saddest point. And I have to say, I cried at this. Genuinely. I'm not joking. So there was the last sighting of the bird was in 1970, in the 1970s. The last recording of the birds was in the 1980s, I think. Yeah. And it was of a lonely male. And I'm pretty sure you can find these clips on YouTube. It was the lonely male singing, a mating song. And it was so sad because he's just singing it to no one. He's singing it to a mate that will never come. Oh my god, it's so sad. It's it's horrible. It just thrives in the back of my mind. I just hear the song and I have to pause everything I do and just sit there. I just sit there. It's really sad. If you want to listen to the song, you can just, type it in Kauaʻi ʻōʻō last song. Recorded song. And most of the videos have like an explanation to it, and you'll get a better explanation than this. But he's singing to someone who's not there. Ah, my heart is wrenching. It's really sad. And I mean, yeah, I was scrolling on Instagram and that's how I learned about the species. I just heard this song and I was like, whoa, let me hear this again. And then I got to the end of the video and they said that was a male. That was the last male of this species singing to a bird who will never come. You're horrible. You are horrible. Anyways, yeah. And I don't think, the Kauaʻi ʻōʻō is definitely not on, Colossal's or any big company's list of species they want to bring back. Definitely not, because, I mean, I mean, I don't know how to say this without sounding mean to the species, but there were a lot of different there were other different species of honey eaters in Hawaii, like on the islands. And so not a lot of people think it's urgent. And I have to say, I agree. I'm sorry, I agree. I think it's more imperative to protect the species that we have today while they're if they're being threatened. So, I mean, take Hawaii, like the islands, for example. They're still being threatened by the invasive species. Protect them. Help preserve the biodiversity that we still have. And, if we have more, and if we do that, we can, branch off from there, bring back the extinct ones. Just saying, deal with what we have now, so we can bring back the past. But that will not be my stance for the next extinct animal. So the next extinct animal, and I do agree it's generic, but I think it's fascinating because I learned about them when I was really young, under 10. Under 10, I was watching this TV show, and I was like, wow, they're dead! I can't believe that. That was my actual thought process. Anyways, Tasmanian tigers in Tasmania. So, they were originally, distributed across Oceania. Like Australia, Papua New Guinea, Tasmania, around Oceania. But they went extinct on the mainland and Papua New Guinea because of the introduction, because of dingoes. And Papua New Guinea actually has, a breed of dingoes that's called the singing dog. They sound like they sing. So, yeah. And the Tasmanian tigers just kind of got, bunched up, closed off into Tasmania. And by the time there were European settlers, there were around 5,000 individuals. So not a lot. But, and then because the European settlers needed land for, for them to live. They destroyed habitats, and they also needed land to rear their sheep. They also destroyed more habitats. And so, habitat destruction reduced the habitats, made survival less likely for the Tasmanian tigers. And then, not only that, but the nerve of the government and a agriculture company, I think it's Van Diemen's Company. I'm not sure if I got that right. Sorry. But they put out a bounty on the Tasmanian tigers because they were kind of a scapegoat to their livestock losses. And and that just kind of encouraged locals to kind of just, well, not locals, settlers, to just mass exterminate them island-wide. And yeah, a lot of them, yeah. And then, poison, shooting them. Yeah. Not only that, the settlers brought invasive species. It's always invasive species. I can't. So this time the invasive species are domestic cats and dogs. Remember when I was talking about the sheep? It was more likely that the dingoes and dogs were, killing the sheep. Because there have been some studies that showed that it's not very likely that Tasmanian tigers went for bigger prey. They most possibly went for smaller prey because of teeth wear, I think, and how much stress it would put on the snout. And so most likely they would have gone for smaller prey. And so, yeah, they were wrongfully accused and persecuted. Now, coming back to the feral cats and dogs. The feral cats and dogs, obviously, because the Tasmanian tiger was the apex predator, competed with the Tasmanian tiger for, the top niche niche in the environment, apex predator. The cats and dogs, actually, really, really decimated the population of their prey. And so, the population of thylacines went down as well. And then I think the last wild individual Tasmanian tiger was killed in 1930 by a farmer. And I think there's a picture of it. Yeah, the farmer posing with it. Audacious. And then the last known Tasmanian tiger went extinct in 1936 at Hobart Zoo, I think. Yeah. And it was an individual named Benjamin. It was actually a female. And the conditions that Benjamin was kept in was like really poor. They really sucked. And so along with Benjamin, the whole thylacine family just kind of went gone. And yeah, really sad, really, really sad. And now, I mean, there aren't a lot of viable specimens to like extract DNA from to, bring back the thylacines. Plus, the closest living relative is the numbat, which is hella small and does not look anything like the Tasmanian tiger. And so, yeah, there's obviously going to be difficulties. And yeah. But, again, I have to disagree with my previous statement of maybe we should focus on conserving our species that we have today. I don't think, it depends on contexts. In this context, for the thylacines, I don't agree. I think they should be brought back because they can definitely bring back balance to the ecosystems. If they're brought back with help, with, support, it can definitely reach, the previous ecosystem niche that they had, apex predators. It could definitely help prevent the extinction of smaller marsupials from large populations of invasive species. And then not only that, it could possibly reduce devil facial tumor disease. It's like a tumor disease that has transmitted throughout the population of Tasmanian devils on Tasmania. And it's really wreaked havoc on the population. And if the Tasmanian tigers are brought back, they can, eat and prey off the weaker, the more sicker individuals. And so that'll reduce, the spread of the disease. It could also, help reduce the spread of disease in other marsupials as well. And so, yeah, that's why I think Tasmanian tigers should definitely be brought back. Just saying. It's fine if you have a different opinion, obviously. I'm just saying my opinion. You know what? Since we're on the idea of resurrection biology, de-extinction, I think it's due time we talk about dire wolves, like what Colossal did. I will say that was kind of pointless. I mean, it's cool that they're back. After 10,000 years. It's really cool. Don't get me wrong. But what part do they play in today's ecosystems? I mean, do you just make them for show? Are they a source of revenue for you guys? Because that's not really ethical, is it? Just saying. Just saying my thoughts, voicing my thoughts. It's not really ethical. But it's really cool. And another point of mine, they aren't, technological advancement, yeah, good, sure. But I don't think you should call them dire wolves, because they aren't actually fully dire wolves. You rebuilt their genome from comparing them with gray wolves, which they're really, really, really closely related to, but obviously there's always going to be that one small bit that you can't find, and so you use gray wolf DNA genomes, and it will always just be 99% dire wolves. It won't fully be dire wolves. And so maybe in some instances it's just better to focus on the species that we have today. Plus, what role can dire wolves play in today's ecosystems? They would absolutely decimate populations of prey, and if you brought back into ecosystems that they were in before, it would absolutely decimate the predators that are there. So, what was the point? Those are my thoughts. Just saying. If you don't agree with them, that's okay. We all have our different thoughts. Anyways, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for joining in. Bye, guys.